All right. Hello, everybody. I believe it is 7 o'clock, right on the dot. I'm Bernie Wiesen. I'm the Executive Director here at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Rensselaer County. I want to welcome you all for making time to come out and watch this at the comforts of hopefully your own home, or at least a nice, comfortable space. I know it might be a little competitive with people's antsiness to be outside, because from my window, it looks like it's pretty darn nice outside and it's still light out. So we're really glad that you guys are still willing to sit inside and take a look at what we have to offer tonight. I'm going to keep an eye on our waiting room. So if you bear with me, I might look like I'm looking all over the place. I just want to go over some bare basics of Zooming. We've all become quite experts in this in the past 2 years through the pandemic. Just a gentle reminder, you can adjust what you see in your view. You can do gallery view, or you can do presenter view up in the upper right-hand corner, your preference. Feel free to select it. The other thing is we've got other presenters tonight. We're not all in the same room or space. So it may be a little bit different for your audio. So feel free to adjust your own audio, which is found at your toolbar on typically the lower left-hand quadrant of your toolbar. So I'm going to go ahead and keep trucking along. I would love to introduce our presenters today. They are Felisha Chandler, our nutrition program educator for our expanded food and nutrition education program. And she's going to be the cook, and she's the expert with recipes. And then I'm also tickled to introduce Rebecca Wiley. Rebecca Wiley is a registered dietitian. She actually did start out several years back under our roof as a registered dietitian, nutrition educator for Cooperative Extension, but currently is working for Anthem Insurance as a registered dietitian. So thank you, Rebecca and Felisha, for sharing your expertise today. I'm going to then at this point ask if there's any questions or concerns before we get rolling. Is everybody able to see us? Is everybody able to see what? Nobody has put anything on the screen yet, so we're good. I'm going to watch the chat. Felisha is going to kick us off and walk us through the 2 recipes, a sweet potato recipe as a dessert, a sweet potato bake, and collard greens. Those of you who registered for this segment prior to this morning should have already received the recipes and the shopping list for these 2 recipes, but I will resend again. Great. I will resend again after this session. And Felisha is a believer in when you've got a question, ask it, especially when she's doing it a lot with her hands. So I'm probably going to ask if you all could mute yourselves and maybe put your questions in the chat box. And if you're not familiar with the chat box, if you go again to the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, there's a little bubble that looks like a comic strip script balloon. If you click in there, you can put your question in there. And then I will kind of act as a moderator and pipe in for Felisha when it makes sense with any questions that you might have. So without further ado, we'll be actually after Felisha's done, then we'll be coming in with Rebecca with the registered dietitian information regarding nutrition and heart health. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Felisha. And Felisha, you're going to need to unmute yourself. I'm going to try to unmute you from here, but I don't think I can.
There we go.
There you go. Perfect.
So I get the speaker.
Perfect.
Can everyone see me? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to get the speaker part where they see the full screen. Just me cooking. I think I have to go up here. Oh, no. There we go. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Felisha Chandler, Nutrition Program Editor from Cornell Cooperative Extension. Today we're going to talk about cooking heart-healthy recipes. The first recipe I will start with is collard greens. How many of you guys have prepared collard greens? You can write it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and let me know. Being a southern person from Mississippi, collard greens is one of the vegetable staple in my household. We make collard greens down south for a lot of fat. But we actually to make them probably a lot more healthier. Oh, I see some chats. Okay. So tonight's recipe is very healthy. So do everyone have the recipe? And we're going to start off with something called mise en place. That means putting everything in this place. So all ingredients should be chopped. So, but before I start, I do apologize, is I'm going to show you the finished product. This is the finished product of the collard greens. Okay, put that aside. And I'm going to start with reading the ingredients. So wash all vegetables. Now, just a couple of facts about collard greens. Collard greens actually have a wonderful history. They are related to the kale in the cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts category. Also, collard greens, did you know collard greens can be purchased year-round, but they are tastier and more nutritious in cold months? So, especially in January to April. So as I start with all the ingredients, all the vegetables have been washed, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about collard greens. So, collard greens should be purchased looking this nice and pretty. No yellow spots, no wilted. And when you purchase the collard greens, make sure you wrap them really well, but they wilt really quickly. Okay? And you can wash them in cold water with a little bit of salt. Just keep them nice and fresh. You wash collard greens a couple of times in cold water. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of cutting the collard greens. And as I'm cutting them, I'm going to cut off the stems because they cook a little bit easier that way. Okay? Let's just see here. And once you get the stems cut out, you want to fold them over. Stem. Put that aside. Now, collard greens, when you cook them, they should have a little bit of a crisp, not sogginess. Okay? I cut all these up. I'm going to roll them. Okay. My fingers folded. Now, generally, some people cook their collard greens all day. You don't need to cook them all day. So we roll them and take out the stem, they cook a lot quicker. Okay. Collard greens look like that. I'll put those aside. And as I'm starting off with that, talk a little bit more things about this recipe. So in this part of the recipe, I am going to saute the onions. So you want to put your meat, your heat on medium heat. So about a 4 or 3. Okay. So first step in this recipe, all vegetables are chopped. So in the pan, you put the vegetable oil. Use the vegetable oil because it keeps a nice high heat. I mean, you could use olive oil, but at this moment, the vegetable oil works really better. Okay. The next thing we're going to put in, as we're following the steps, is the butter. Now, most butters have written on them, have about, it shows what a tablespoon meant. So we're going to use 1 tablespoon. Put that in there. that heat up. Okay, everybody see that? And make sure your butter's completely melted. And then you can add the onions in. Okay. So I have about here, about half an onion, medium, any kind of onions you like. Now to be a little bit different, you can use the white onions. These are white onions, which I thought a little bit more better. Okay. So I'm going to sweat those a little bit. Perfect. Okay, next step is where the onions are cooking till they're soft for 2 minutes. Okay. Okay. After the onions are cooking, so a couple more things about collard greens. So collard greens are the oldest and leafiest green within the cabbage family. It dates back to 200 years, originally grown in ancient Greek and Rome. So, but there's a good interesting fact. In 1975, Anthem Inc, North Carolina named its town annual festival the Anthem Collard Green Festival. And this tradition still today, for 40 years. Collard greens were named the State Vegetable of South Carolina in 2001. Okay. Other things about collard greens, you can steam fry them for 5 minutes or saute them in olive oil and season to what you like. The onions are cooking away here. Okay. Right. So I'm going to set these aside, let them cook, let them sweat. That means they get a little bit of water in them. They cook a little bit, reduce the onions. And as those are cooking, I am going to bring out my Dutch. Now I like to cook this pan with collard greens because it really cooks nice and it keeps the heat really well. Okay. So first thing we gotta do once that's done cooking is we should add the red pepper flakes. Okay. I'm going to add 1/8 teaspoon red pepper flakes or to taste what fits you. Okay. Next ingredient will be the garlic powder. Okay. Or you can use fresh garlic. Okay. Next ingredient will be, how my onions are doing. Oh, they look good. And you want to cook them uncovered. Okay. Next ingredient is the chicken broth. I have 3 cups of chicken broth.
No, how do you see her? I mean, I just hear her talking, but I don't.
Oh, does someone have a question?
Felicia, we're having a participant.
A crown?
We are.
They have a question. I'm sorry.
All I see is mute start video. They won't let me do that because only the host. So
I think.
No, on the top. Shit.
Is this Leah?
Oh crap! All I have is 18 participants. Chat.
Okay. So
No, I don't.
So Leah, what kind of device are you using? Are you a computer or a tablet?
I'm on an iPad.
Okay. Do you see in the upper right hand corner, is there a little thing that says view?
No, I don't see that.
Okay. I'm not sure I'll be able to help you because I feel as if what you're dealing with is maybe a screen that's not been maximized. Because if you can see certain elements of what's going on and you can hear us, I feel like it has something to do with your viewing capability on your device.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I maybe should try to minimize the screen. Maybe that will help.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
You're welcome. Good luck, Leah. Okay, sorry, Felisha, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So we got the onions done. We add the crushed red pepper, the garlic powder. Next, we're going to add the sauteed onions. They should look like this. They should be transparent. So it's important to watch the heat when you're making onions.
Oh.
Put my pan here. Clean this and go. Okay. Next step, as those cooking, I'm going to add a 3 cups of chicken broth, or you can add vegetable broth if you like. I measure this all out. That's that. Okay. Next thing I will add, so as I'm adding that, I'm going to add the collard greens. Now, one thing about the collard greens, these are just, the regular collard greens are a little bitter. You can put a little vinegar in them. Some people put apple cider vinegar. Now, the other collard greens that are not so bitter are the turnip greens. They're a little bit more sweeter because of the leaves. Okay. I'll put that aside. And so as that's cooking, you want to cook that for at least 40 minutes or until greens tender. One step that I forgot to show you is how to cut the tomatoes. Now, the tomatoes are really interesting. You can buy any tomatoes you like. You can buy a steak tomato, you can buy a Roma tomato, whatever works well. So these are little garden tomatoes that I bought, just to an example. So I'm going to remove the seeds. The reason why you remove the seeds, so that they don't wilt the collard greens. So you can use a 1/8 teaspoon, scoop out around like that. Okay. Get all those seeds out there. Okay. Tomatoes are not done to be added until last. Okay. So I'm going to cut up the tomatoes.
Felicia, while you're doing that, we did have some great comments from folks on the collard greens.
Okay, sure.
Susan said she loves greens and she usually has them with smoked turkey leg for flavor.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's one of the ways to have a collard green with that. Or, you know, actually, sometimes turkey.
And Susan also says she also often has combination of collards, turnip, and mustard greens.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you cook them? Would you mind to share? Or would you like to share how she cook them?
Susan, you are unmuted if you'd like to pipe in.
Yeah. The tomatoes are done. I see, as you can see, I put the seeds there. Okay. All right, as that's cooking, I'm going to put this on top of the stove. Okay.
Is this working now?
It is. Susan?
Okay, yes. I said I usually do it similarly instead, but I make the broth using the turkey leg and then do similar to what you're doing. Chop up my greens, clean them, chop them.
Yeah.
The tougher greens I pop in first a little earlier.
Okay.
And I do often use a little vinegar in the mix. Sometimes greens with beans, it just depends what I have.
Awesome.
I do enjoy them.
Great. Yeah.
So
You have collard greens anytime, but
you're welcome.
most people sometimes from the South, Mississippi, we have it a lot with cornbread.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I know.
It is good.
Yeah, it's very good for you. And you know, people are often feel like, you need calories, they take too long. No.
No, they
Once you
don't.
take out the stem, they cook very easy.
In my house, we eat quite a different variety of greens, whether it's that, sometimes it's broccoli rabe and white beans, sometimes it's or broccoli rabe and chickpeas or escarole and beans, all delicious. We are definitely greens
Awesome.
eaters.
Great.
It's so
Anyway,
good for you.
I'll let you get back to teaching.
Oh, no, this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your questions. And you can purchase collard greens that Hannah first sells them pretty good. They look really pretty. And like I said, already look for something that's not yellow or spot, but nice and pretty greens. Very important. Okay. Do anyone have any questions at the moment? We're gonna add the tomatoes last. I'm gonna come back to that towards the end. The collard greens gotta cook for 40 minutes.
So far, Felicia, no questions in the chat.
Okay, so we are going to move on to, I'm just gonna wipe off the board just for a second. I'm gonna move on to my next recipe. The next recipe is one of my favorite, sweet potato apple cake. And I'm just getting some right out the oven right now. Nice and fresh. Looks just like that. But that smells good. That should smell really good to me. So sweet potatoes are available year-round. Okay? And the awesome thing about sweet potatoes, there's no need to refrigerate them. You want to keep them in a cool, dark place, and you do not want to put raw potatoes in the refrigerator. This could cause a toxin with the potatoes. Okay? They should be cooked. Also, sweet potatoes are really easy to cook. Now with this recipe, I use the canned sweet potatoes. Now, the awesome thing with this recipe, canned works best. You can do fresh sweet potatoes, but they will take longer, and you want to cut them really small, okay? And then once you cook them, the juice from them, that you can use in the syrup preparing the recipe. So, recipe is sweet potato apple cake. Let's talk a little bit about that. So the apples for this recipe, I use the Granny Smith apples. They hold up a little better. Okay? But use any apples you like, but remember the Granny Smith got more of a crisp to it. So I'm going to cut my apple. Perfect. Got my apple core on here. These are great to have. Yeah. Okay. Gonna cut that seed out there. We don't want that. On this side. You can just chop them. About 2 apples is about 2 cups, depending on the size of the apples. These are pretty big, so. Okay. Now apples will turn brown, but use some lemon juice. That should keep them nice and pretty. This recipe didn't really matter too much. I don't want to take away from the taste, but you know, I love to make my apple fruit salad. I want to keep it nice and pretty. Okay. And also about this recipe, I used pecans. You can use walnuts, they are a lot cheaper. Okay. And also this recipe, I used flour. I mean the flour, of course, all purpose. And you can use whole wheat flour, or actually with this recipe, I added cinnamon. It's not in the recipe, but I thought it'd make a nice twist. Okay. My apples here. Look like I got a paper here. All right, apples are chopped. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the details. So oven, first thing to do is have your mise en place, your oven done, heat it at 350, preheat. Place the sweet potatoes in the pan. Okay, can be pretty good. Okay. Now I core my apples. So let's see. Put sweet potatoes in baking dish. Okay. With the apples. Okay. Now some of the sweet potatoes that come out of the can, you might want to cut them a little bit if they're too chunky. Here. Perfect. Okay. So that's all done. Move this out the way. Next thing I'm going to do. Grab my ingredients over here. Walnuts, flour, and cinnamon. Oh, and I'm going to take a quick second and check on my collard greens. Oh, they're looking good. Cook them with the lid on, especially in the Dutch oven. Keeps the heat really good. Okay. Move that aside. Last thing in the bowl, I will put the juice from the sweet potatoes. Onions. Okay. So we need about the juice. We need about 2 tablespoons. Okay. So set aside. Okay. We need brown sugar. Okay, you want to whisk the brown sugar around a little bit. Perfect. Next ingredient are the pecans. That's what you go in the bowl, not on the table. Okay. And once all that's all done, then we can add the flour. And it should look just like this. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Yes, Felisha, we do have a question.
Oh, okay.
We have a question about sodium levels. Nancy would like to know how much sodium is in the canned sweet potato. And I know you've got the can right there.
That is 5 grams of sodium.
Okay, thank you, Felisha. And I suspect that Nancy, Rebecca might be getting into some of those details in her presentation after Felisha's done with her recipes. Now, Emily also has a question. Would the cooking time change whether you used fresh sweet potatoes or canned sweet potatoes?
Well, the cooking time actually for this recipe takes 20 or 30 minutes. Depends on how you chop the sweet potatoes. So you want to do them like in a cube, they take maybe about 35 minutes to cook. And you want to put a fork in to make sure it's nice and tender.
So they would take a little bit longer than typically.
Take a little bit longer, exactly.
All right.
So it depends on how you cut the sweet potatoes.
Okay, great.
And the last ingredient I'm going to add is the melted butter. Actually, I got to melt my butter one more time in the microwave. For half a second. Collard greens are cooking away. Okay, the butter's melted. This is looking fabulous. And in this, as I'm mixing the mixture together, I'm going to add some cinnamon. Like I said, this is not on the recipe. Okay. So I'm going to add half a teaspoon. Rice spices are great to use. That's the cheap too. And they add just as much flavor. You can add nutmeg in here if you like. Okay. And that's your mixture. Now, after all that's done, I'm going to mix this around, and I'm going to pop this in the oven. Bake until golden brown on bubbly. Okay. All right. Looking good. And the apples will give some of the juice too. Keep it in the bowl. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to pop that in the oven. All right. Set my timer. And I guess I have to show everybody my calories. Perfect. See what calories look like? I'm going to scoot back to those just for a quick second. Away. See, how's those calories? Pretty good. Okay. Let's cook them a little bit. Let's see if they're nice and tender. I like a crisp, not overcooked. They could need to cook a little bit more. Okay. Maybe for about a good 5 more minutes. Okay. So. Okay. All right. So what questions do you have?
So actually, Felisha, you must be doing a really good job because there really aren't any questions in the chat at this moment.
Okay. So other things about, one more thing about sweet potatoes. Now, anybody know the difference between sweet potatoes and yams? Yams are kind of brown and they're a little, what do I say, like a dark brown, like a turbot potato, and then they got a white center. A lot of people get that mixed up. Yams are a little orange, but they can come in different colors. Okay. Any questions?
I think we're good, Felisha. Actually,
Okay, let's take a look at those
hold on.
calories.
Just a minute, Felisha, we do have one that just came in. From Leah, how do you know that the collard greens are done or not done? Can you go over that?
Yes. About, I got them right here. About how tender they are. I'm picking one down here to show you. So, right there. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's see what it needs to do. So you can tell how tender. See how I take the fork and they don't cut through? They gotta be tender. They gotta be like a fork. So these are not done yet. Okay?
So Leah, it's a highly scientific fork test. If you
It's a
can
fork
pull the
test.
leaf across
Yes.
with a fork,
Yeah.
you're good to go. If you can't, they're not ready yet.
They're not done. Yep, so you
Good
got to put a
question.
fork test. So
Good
they're like this, they are not done yet. So just like a fork test.
Perfect.
Yep.
And I would love to kind of capitalize and take advantage of the question Emily asked about fresh sweet potatoes. You know, here at Cornell Cooperative Extension, we do a lot of programming from field to fork. Literally, we've got staff that work with our farmers, we have staff that work with consumers, and we have staff that help you get that food from wherever you've purchased it into and onto your various dining room tables. So I want to just put a little commercial. One of the tools that we've developed in partnership with the Rensselaer County Office of Economic Development and Planning with their Agriculture Economic Development staffer is Harvest Connection. And I'm going to put the website into the chat. And that's a great source here in the Capital District to jump on board. So maybe later in the year, you are looking for fresh tomatoes to use rather than going to your local grocery store. Support your local farmer and find some local ingredients for your recipes later in the year, or even consider doing some food preservation. So you can enjoy that great stuff year round. So I'm going to put Harvest Connection into the chat, and hopefully you guys, if you haven't been there, might think about investigating and utilizing that tool. So anyways, I think that's good, Felisha. Are we ready to pass?
One last question.
Okay.
Yeah, one last part. So let's check those calories. So now, still cooking away, you can add the tomato. Okay? There's your finished product. I'm gonna cook this a little bit. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much, Felisha.
Thank you, guys.
So Felisha will be sticking around in case you have questions that pop up as we move on to Rebecca Wiley and her presentation. I'm going to actually hold off on questions until Rebecca's done with her presentation, but we will get to them. If you put them in the chat, we'll get them to you at the end. And I have to say thank you for the kudos comment from Susan to Felisha. Nice job, Felisha. Thank you. And Nancy says thank you as well.
I just want to put my name in the chat. So if anybody wants to reach you for nutritional education.
Yep.
There.
Feel free to do that, Felisha, as well as your email and phone number if you would like. All right. So just give us half a second and we're going to transition a little bit. And I'm going to move over to Rebecca here.
Great. Hi there. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Bernie and Felisha. Felisha's recipes are really a great example of some heart healthy eating, because one of the best things we can do for our heart health is to add fruits and vegetables to the diet. And I am going to share my screen with you in case you do want to take a few notes. Okay. So some of the benefits to fruits and vegetables, or to our heart health from fruits and vegetables: all fruits and vegetables provide anti-inflammatory benefits throughout the cardiovascular system. And the collard greens are actually especially studied for their anti-inflammatory compounds, as are the apples. Fruits and vegetables are effective for weight loss and weight control by taking some of the space of the higher calorie foods, but still providing that fullness and satisfaction. They also supply important nutrients that act as blood pressure regulators and keep the blood vessels flexible. And finally, they help to control blood sugars, which is important for heart health. When the blood sugar is too high, the heart is not getting the nutrients it needs to function well. So a few ideas in addition to Felisha's delicious recipes would be to, add some chopped up onions and garlic during cooking. Sprinkle some fresh herbs over your cooked dishes, maybe some parsley to Italian dishes or over pasta, or some cilantro over a Mexican dish. You could add black beans or kidney beans when you are cooking ground meats. Add some cooked chopped vegetables into any casserole type dish you make. For example, chopped cauliflower in mac and cheese, or some chopped broccoli in lasagna, maybe some diced peppers in a pasta dish. Have some chopped up veggies and hummus, or a low-fat tzatziki dip ready for a quick snack, or maybe for munching while you are preparing your dinner. Keep a bowl of fruit on the counter or washed and cut up in the fridge to be able to grab that easily. Keep an inventory of frozen vegetables and canned vegetables, either low or no sodium added, or you can always rinse canned vegetables before cooking, and that significantly lowers the sodium content. For afternoon energy slumps, use a piece of fruit and a protein like some nuts and seeds or an egg or a cup of milk to provide some slow and sustained energy boost that should get you through till dinner time. If you have trouble with the taste of vegetables, it will be easiest to accept them when you are hungriest, then have the rest of the meal or snack. Our palates do adjust to accepting vegetables if we just keep trying. So so there are no bad fruits or vegetables. It's recommended by USDA that most adults consume between 3.5 and 4.5 cups total fruits and vegetables daily. And if you set your plate up just like the My Plate plan, that'll at least get you close to the target of 3.5 to 4.5 cups for the day. My next tip is to practice mindful eating. Many people take on unhealthy measures in order to lose weight. Dieting is actually proven to be unsuccessful and harmful even. It's a physical, mental, and monetary strain. And research shows that the healthy habits done consistently benefit our health with or without weight loss as a result. Weight may cause some issues itself, but weight loss often results over time after making consistently healthier choices, which, like I said, start to benefit health long before. Mindful eating is a non-diet approach to eating well. Unfortunately, sometimes the term mindful eating is misused by the diet industry. I'm going to talk about the true, well-researched meaning and a few practices you can try out. Intuitive eating is another similar term you may have heard. So mindful eating is focused on turning to your own body's inner wisdom to know what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat. And that's pretty different than the rules and restrictions of diets. We can still follow the nutritional guidelines from a good resource like My Plate Plan. But here's a practice you can try. When you sit down to a meal, take some breaths before you start. Nobody has to know what you're doing. Observe how hungry you feel. You might rate that on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being not hungry at all, to 10 being as hungry as you can imagine being. Or you might use something like this scale from the MOVE program at the Veterans Administration. You can find that on their website. That's at the bottom of the screen. It has both a hunger and a fullness scale, or I'm sorry, it has both hunger and fullness on the same scale. It helps to slow down a bit as you eat if you are a fast eater. While you eat your meal, keep observing how your fullness is increasing and rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. And also observe how your satisfaction is increasing and rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. And notice when you are comfortably full and satisfied. You may decide to continue to eat. There are no rules and judgments to this. It's learning something about yourself. The more you do this, the more you learn. Many people start to get comfortable at a certain point, pushing the food away after kind of observing what level of fullness and satiety they feel most comfortable. Many people are surprised by how different fullness is from satiety. So have you ever been in a rush maybe and eaten one single food, maybe a bagel? And even though you might have been full, maybe you felt like you wished you'd had some protein with it, maybe some veggies to round it out, like as in a sandwich. So this can be really interesting, and keeping judgment out of it is key. We can learn so much more when we don't judge ourselves so harshly. The reason I bring up mindful eating in a heart healthy topic is that mindful eating is shown to improve mental health and eating attitudes and cultivate overall healthier eating behaviors. And so both the reduction of stress and healthier eating benefits our hearts. I've been getting a lot of questions about using food to cope with stress, especially over the past 2 years. It is normal to desire foods to help with stress, and it does work. That is a normal process. But when we rely on foods to cope too often, we can gain weight or eat too many of the foods that are high in sugar, salt, and fat. So I recommend making a list of simple coping strategies from the simplest and quickest, like a few deep belly breaths, standing up and stretching, to maybe doing some crossword puzzles or doodling, to things that take a little longer, like art or reading. If we're used to using food to cope often, it's challenging to think of an alternative in the moment. So with this idea, you'll have a list already. Studies show that finding something to do with our hands seems to be the most effective diversion from eating. And cravings usually take about 20 to 40 minutes to resolve. So it's called surfing the urge if you can divert your attention from the craving for a little while. It's also okay if you decide that the best thing to do is to have that food that you were craving. The next thing to talk about is incorporating some key foods that are high in soluble fiber. So you can think of soluble fiber as actually wasting cholesterol from the body. In all plant foods, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans and lentils provide us some soluble fiber. And I have a list here of some of the foods that are particularly high in soluble fiber. So we have asparagus, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. These are also studied for their anti-cancer benefits, by the way. Sweet potato, we had a good recipe for that tonight. Turnips and apricots. Mangoes and oranges, also high in vitamin C, so they're great for immune function as well. All of the starchy beans like kidney beans, black beans, navy, pinto, cannellini, black-eyed peas, chickpeas, all of those. And then finally, oats. So to increase your soluble fiber intake, you could circulate these foods throughout your diet, maybe have one of these every day. Lentils are also a great way to sneak in some soluble fiber. The dry red lentils are inexpensive and easy to cook, and they take about 10 minutes cooked from dry. So you mash them up a little when they're done and just stir them into any red sauce, gravy, mashed potatoes, or casserole type dish. And they'll add some protein, some soluble fiber, and help increase fullness and satiety. And they're really not that noticeable. I wanted to share a helpful rule of thumb for sodium. Many people are reading labels or looking at restaurant menus ahead of going there. If we aim for 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium per meal, that's a target range that allows some sodium in our snacks and some flexibility in the diet to help stay at or below 2,300 milligrams of sodium as a nice general limit for the day. And of course, if you've been given a specific limit on sodium from your doctor, you should follow that, above what I say here. These are just for general information. And when reading a nutrition label, a food that has 140 milligrams of less of sodium is considered low sodium. And then just remember that is based on the serving size, which also appears at the top of the nutrition facts label. So if you double the serving, then the sodium gets doubled too. And last but not least is getting kids involved in healthy eating early in life. Peaceful, enjoyable family meals shows benefits even beyond good nutrition. This teaches them that eating is important and lets them explore that for themselves. It also builds confidence for future decision making. So start family meals together right away. We've heard of the old Mediterranean diet and lifestyle being heart healthy. Part of the reason is the sharing of meals together. So parents decide what foods to offer at the meal and when snacks and meal times will be. And children decide whether to eat, which of those foods offered to eat or not eat, and how much. This is from Ellen Satter, who is a child feeding expert. So this is a plan for peaceful meals when everybody knows their part. Keep offering foods despite rejection. Erratic eating behavior is normal for children as long as they're growing well. Your modeling eating behavior is enough. Let kids get messy at meals. It's how they learn about new textures and to accept new foods. Let them try out using their hands, utensils, eating fast or slow, or too much or too little. They're learning to use their own inner guidance to eat, just like we talked about before in mindful eating. And letting kids help in the kitchen when it's appropriate teaches them a lot too. It doesn't have to be the healthiest food that you're preparing together. Just make something that appeals to the kids. So I hope a few of these ideas appeal to you. When I talk with people about making changes to their diets, I encourage starting where you are and thinking of one step that seems practical and sustainable. Then when you're comfortable with that, then take another. So if you are looking to make a change, I invite you to take a moment now to just write down one step you plan to take on. I'm going to give you just a few moments to think of one and kind of write that down. Maybe you decide to try out one of the recipes from tonight. Maybe you decide that you'll have, one fruit and one vegetable every day from now on. Maybe you'll take a few breaths before eating meals. Maybe add, one of those high soluble fiber foods every day. So up to you what you feel like might be most practical.
For those who might be willing, feel free to put them in the chat too, because sometimes it also helps break away. If you put something down, it might give someone else the confidence to try something as well. So feel free to put something in the chat. Oh, great. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. That's a great idea, Bernie. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll hand it back over to you then, Bernie. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. And ironically, Rebecca, there are not any questions that I see at this point. So I guess at this point, what I would say is we're kind of in the phase where we're kind of wrapping things up. So if anybody has a question about anything that we've talked about, don't hesitate to let us know. So let's see. All right, I think we're good. Are there any last minute questions, everyone? I've really thank everybody who's used the chat to get engaged and help us be informed of where you're coming from and questions. This will be recorded. And I know that after this, we will be sending you out a link to the recording of this, which will be on our CCE Rensselaer County YouTube channel. So be looking for that. Just some of the comments in the chat. Felicia's reminding us of portion sizes, absolutely. And Nancy is thanking Rebecca for good reminders. And Susan, thank you for the entire presentation. Well done and informative and very clearly presented. So thank you very much. All right then. Well, I guess I will encourage you guys to go ahead and move on with the rest of your evening. Have a great evening. It's only barely 8 o'clock. There's a lot left for the evening. So enjoy, happy spring, and thanks for joining us.